All right, so just as an opener, our chair and vice chair are not present, so our clerk will be presiding unless she chooses to
I'll do it.
foist it on someone else. You'll do it.
I'll do it.
All right, so Donna,
Yeah.
take it away.
Okay. So as we officially welcome everyone to and open the Planning Commission meeting for August 12th, 2025. And in the case of an emergency, those in attendance can exit down either hallway to the stairs and out the doors. I think that's covers that. Member of the public, anyone have any additions? Any items not related to the agenda? Okay, I think we're good there. Any changes or deletions or changes to the agenda? No, good. Okay, so next item, announcements and staff report.
So staff report, you have what we have for you all. Yeah, it's included in the memo, so unless there are any questions about those couple of items, we don't need to rehash those announcements.
Okay.
So it says they want us to review height specifically for that area behind the DoubleTree.
Yes.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah.
So we're just gonna keep it as is and maybe we'll revisit it later.
Yes, so what happened is the city council has warned the LDR amendments as written, except for keeping that area HSMU instead of moving it into the T4, which keeps it at the heights that were established for HSMU.
It is discontiguous from the rest of the
And
too.
if there was something else, they,
Yeah, and then there was the city center park issue. As
Yeah,
to whether to
map.
put that on the official map.
I think that was not included in the warning for future.
action for us.
Oh, something that we need to be doing.
So that's on our agenda then as an action item to
It's
talk about.
not today, no.
Not today, okay. Too important.
More.
We're only 4 out of 7.
Needs some lead time.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Is there any commissioner?
Any announcements from commissioners? I think I have one.
Okay.
Yeah, I have one, because this came to my inbox. The Bike and Ped Committee has submitted, or the city has submitted, for bicycle friendly community status. This is an update, I think, that happens every 3 or 4 years, something like that. And the city was awarded bronze status, which is the lowest recognized status in the last one, and so it just resubmitted. And there will be a survey that is going to be going out and the survey is already available because I took it the other day just to see what it was like, what it involved. And so the city's going to be asking for the public to take the survey for input on whether, on how South Burlington is doing in terms of meeting its bicycle friendly community goals. And it's not bike pedestrian, it's specifically about bicycles too. So a lot about education is in there too, which was kind of one of our weak spots in the application. So just be aware of that, and when you see it, please fill it out. Because the more input they get from the public, the better it looks. Whether be it positive or negative or whatever, but the more input they get, they know you have a more involved citizenry. So that's my announcement. Oh, and it has to be done by like October 10th or something like that. So there's plenty of time. It's the League of American Bicyclists. It's called the Bicycle Friendly Communities. They have bicycle friendly universities, bicycle friendly cities. They have all these different classifications. And I don't think Burlington
You
has.
have a link for it.
If you go to the League of American Bicyclists and you go to
Yeah.
bicycle friendly community, if you just, I could do that. Yeah.
It's available in the agenda for tomorrow's bike ped meeting.
Oh, yeah, because that's part of the discussion tomorrow is
Hmm.
what I'm doing right now is helping people know about it. And city has a plan to let people know about the service. That's my announcement. So I guess we're up to number 5 already,
Moving right along.
moving right along. So this is the Act 250 Tier 1 analysis of requirements.
Yeah, so I'm happy to step in here.
Okay,
So
great.
we provided the memo that's included in your packet.
Yep.
It does kind of back up a little bit to the beginning and provide just foundational background about what we were talking about when we're saying tier 1A, tier 2,
Mhm.
tier, et cetera. What this memo is outlining in after the background, and if anyone has questions about any of the background piece, jump in and let me know. What this is outlining is what South Burlington would need to still do to meet the eligibility requirements for tier 1A. So there's 2 different things that the commission has talked about in the past. One is the statute, Act 181, set out a list of requirements for tier 1A for a municipality to have tier 1A status. This memo is about meeting those requirements. The LURB, or the LURB, the Land Use Review Board, is still working on some additional guidance on some of the nuances of what they're going to be looking for when we provide our application. So this all will be updated in the fall and into the winter as that further guidance comes out. But this is our first crack at how South Burlington, as our regulations and our programs and our city currently exist, how well we meet the requirements to be considered for tier 1A status for parts of our municipality. The other thing that you all have asked for that I just want to make sure that we're clear is the next meeting sort of piece of all of this is comparing what Act 250 currently regulates and what South Burlington currently regulates, and not necessarily to say everything that Act 250 does, we have to take on, because that's not true. Part of the idea of tier 1A is that the municipalities can make determinations of which pieces of regulation
Oh,
are important, because part of the move is both to bring it into the local level, but also to make it easier for development in the areas that cities have determined are the areas suitable for development.
So where 250 is exempt.
Right, so it effectively exempts a
Yeah.
project from Act 250 review at the state level. And we can decide, or you all can decide, what regulations we have and what we need to beef up, or what we don't have and we want to include that would be going away for those exempt areas if Act 250 is no longer involved. The idea, as I just said, the idea is not to duplicate Act 250 and just do it at the local level. The idea is to really think thoughtfully about what are the key regulations that need to be still in place. And we'll talk about that at a future meeting, but for the most part, we're in really good shape on that front as well, because we do have robust regulations compared to many municipalities in the state. So it's kind of it's 2 different comparison charts. The one is meeting the requirements to even qualify to apply for tier 1A. And then once you qualify for tier 1A, deciding what South Burlington wants to be regulating when Act 250 no longer applies. So we're going to be talking about the first pile today, not the second pile.
so any questions? I have one.
Sure.
So if there's some elements that Act 250 is traditionally reviewed, but the towns aren't really, any individual city or town isn't like prepared to do they just tell Act 250, well, we need your help on this part? Or is it all or nothing?
It's all or nothing.
It's all or nothing.
So you can decide and the idea is that it is not, you don't have to apply for tier 1A status for everywhere that's eligible. So if you decided you're a smaller place and you're like, I only want to apply for it for this, town center or village area or something. And then the rest of it, we need Act 250 because they deal with all of these other things that we're not prepared to deal with.
Okay.
The idea is, it is complicated. The idea is that when you're exempted from Act 250, then the city is deciding, these are the things we want to regulate.
Okay.
Often there's things that we already regulate. or there may be a couple of things that we want to pick up that we don't currently regulate. But the idea is that you do not have to match Act 250 to have that review go to the local level.
But like you said, if there are things Act 250, we're relying on Act 250 to take care of,
Yes,
and we get the exemption, then
Yes.
we need to add that in.
Yep.
Because it would no longer be included. So it's, what do we want to jettison, but what do we need to pick up?
Well-
right, and that's right. It's what do we feel like what does South Burlington need to pick up? What do you want to regulate as a topic area, but maybe in a different way? Nothing says you have to sort of copy paste from Act 250 about how they regulate something. There's a lot of different ways to regulate the same topic area. You know, anyway, I don't have to get into that, but there's a lot of different ways to do it for any topic area. And there's a lot of different levels of intensity of how much you want to regulate something. So there's a lot of questions in
So-
that. I
so-
will say that there's not a lot of areas that we don't touch at all that Act 250 regulates, but there are things that we sort of have a little bit, or it's a little bit in our environmental standards or performance standards or something else, but it's not to the level that Act 250 does, but it's not saying that we have to go to the Act 250 level. It's just opening that conversation. So that's at a future meeting.
That would, an example of that would be the National Register of Historic Districts, and where we don't specifically regulate.
So that's both things. So that falls into both categories, that we are required to have historic regulations about historic buildings and places and things to qualify for Tier 1A.
Yep.
But we can also choose to do it completely differently than the state does. We don't have to do it in the same way that the state does, but that is one of
We
the
need to
things
do
that
it.
we do need to do. We need to have something. We don't need, it can be as little as, if a structure is eligible for the National Register of Historic Places, then you must retain it. Like it could be a very simple thing that's very limited to a very high level of historic preservation, or it can sort of go out from there. So the conversation we're having today is things that you need to have. The conversation that we'll have at the next meeting and potentially meetings after that is, how do we want to tackle the things that either we need to have to qualify, or that we want to have that Act 250 would be dropping.
Yeah, no, I would think we would, in this particular case, a minimalist approach would be my preference.
Just one, refresh my memory, in terms of 1A status,
Mhm.
this would be for all the areas that are currently in 1B? Or is this the entire town in 1A?
No, so it would only be things that are in 1B, and it is only areas that are
Development areas.
the planned growth areas on the regional mapping. So it is not areas that don't allow residential.
Gotcha, so it's the same map as 1B, we're just choosing to switch it from 1B to 1A, so
Yeah.
it's the exact same area.
So you can do it, the maximum is the exact same area. You
Okay.
could decide much more complicatedly
Hmm,
to do a subset of it.
that sounds
There's
big.
the way that, and we can talk about this later when we're getting into the details, but there are a few locations in the city that are eligible for Tier 1B, that the way that the statute is written, it's a little bit of an edge case about qualifying for Tier 1A. Just because of how things are written about being, in proximity to a center and things like that.
Gotcha.
And some of that hinges on the regional future land use planning that's been going on with at the RPC level, with the
Mhm.
mapping and everything else that Taylor and
Which we
Kate.
haven't got yet,
What's that?
which we haven't got all of it yet.
No, so that's sort of still in draft iteration. Timing of that is next spring
But-
of,
Are they gonna have a urban development area, what we call Shelburne?
that's still up in the air. It was in as sort of a center, and then it was out, and now I don't know where it is at the moment, because there's a bit of a question mark about the interpretation of the statute, about how many you're allowed to have, and what they have to have kind of around them. So it's hard to have this conversation. We need to have this conversation, but it's also hard to have this conversation because there's still a lot of moving parts. the regional planning is still going on at the RPC level. The adding more nuance and detail to the guidance is still going on at the land use review board level. But part of our motivation for really getting on top of this and getting ahead of it is to be the municipality that is kind of leading the way. And, you know, setting kind of the model ordinance for how a municipality can deal with rare, threatened, and endangered species. So we have a meeting, Paul and I have a meeting set with the A&R people at the state to try to work through like what would a model regulation look like for a municipality to incorporate that to be able to qualify for tier 1A. Because they also don't want to deal with every municipality individually. So if we can get in front and be the person, the municipality who's doing that back and forth with the state on various, on historic or on RTEs or anything else, we can help shape the regional planning, the land use review board's guidance documents, the A&R's guidance on how to do some of these things, historic model ordinance or model regulation things. So we're trying to do some, putting the cart a little bit before the horse, but trying to do it in a way that helps us shape the process for other municipalities as well.
As a matter of who you're dealing with, who are you working with at A&R?
It is 2 people and their names are escaping me. There's so many, get a lot of emails. I'm not.
So an official wildlife, I assume, or,
Yeah.
Yeah, what's CCRPC's role in kind of figuring out the same, I mean, you working with them, or I actually got a hold of Charlie Baker finally, and he said, well, my people I have staff that are working on this right now. It's like, what are the elements in Act 250 that the towns need to be able to, you know, make
Working on a land
make
use.
planning decisions on and
So
stuff
there's-
like that, so.
Yeah, so there's a couple of things. They're working on their regional planning, on the regional land use map and the regional future land use. The ECOS plan renewal, that's all happening with them at their level. They are also involved in talking with the LURB about their guidance documents. So the LURB is setting all of that nuanced guidance, taking from the statute and saying, okay, they say this general thing, here are the 4 specific things that we want you to provide to us and to prove that you're meeting the statutory regulations. So the RPCs, there are RPC staff that are also working with the LURB and with us about getting that guidance clear and sort of setting up that whole system well. We haven't talked to them, at least I haven't talked to them any further about, you know, model regulations in any of the particular topic areas. They may be doing some of that work as well, but we haven't dug into it very far. We have a meeting with A&R in the beginning of September, so some of the things are not truly moving yet.
Does the Labor land use review board have to approve the housing targets that CCRPC has set for this county?
Yes. It's part of the future land use.
Okay,
So the county was already set by the state. The breakdown from the county to municipalities is part of that regional future land use plan. So that put in the map in their ecos plan, all of that is,
so the board, that review board has to approve that.
yeah. Yeah, so that process is partially why some of that approval is set up to be running through April, May of next year. So that was a lot. Would it be helpful for you all to look at the tables?
What have we done there?
Yeah, I guess like most weeks been,
Yeah,
I guess I mean, less about the stuff we comply with and more with stuff we would need to
Yeah.
fit around with some of those requirements.
well, I thought this was very helpful, the comparison.
Yeah.
So this, I'm on 2 computers at once, so bear with me, please. That is still small, okay. So this is the first page that you also had in your memo. This is what I was saying about the tier 1A requirements. This is what the state, the Act 181 says that municipalities have to have as a minimum to even qualify for tier 1A status. So a few of them are just simple yes, nos. Do we have a municipal plan? Yes. Do we have river corridor and flood hazard bylaws? Yes. Do we have zoning and subdivision that doesn't have broad exemptions? Yes. A few, as I've noted, are pending approval of the regional map. So the boundaries are consistent with downtown and village centers. So that's going back, Colin, a little bit to what you were saying about tier 1B. So your tier 1B and tier 1A have to be downtown or village centers and planned growth areas. And the planned growth areas have to be connected to a center. So that's part of the qualifying for tier 1A is what we've mapped as tier 1A matches what is set up in the.
Excuse me, there's a meeting going on.
Now I can use one computer instead of two. And then going down a little bit is when we get a little more into some of the meat of this. So the municipality has permanent land development regulations for tier 1A area that further the smart growth principles of 24 VSA chapter 76A, adequately regulate the physical form and scale, provide reasonable provision for sewer and water to allow at least 4 stories and conform to the guidelines established by the board. So a couple things in there, guidelines established by the board, that's what I was saying is in flux through sort of the fall. Into the winter, adequately regulate physical form and scale of development. We have a pretty elaborate system for regulating those things. Areas with sewer and water that a portion of the areas of sewer and water to allow at least 4 stories. That is a point where it either you can shrink your tier 1A area a little bit, or you can make the argument that a sufficient amount of our area is allowing, of the tier 1A area is allowing 4 or more stories. So for example, like our LSN area, is in the tier 1B area, but it does not allow 4 stories. But every zoning district sort of higher than that does. So that is a portion of the area. So some of this is going to require some narrative explanation for us in the application.
And this is based on
This
the
is-
portion to allow for 4 stories. Is that based on our current zoning for the area, the water and sewer capacity, or both?
It is,
In our case, it's gonna be both,
it's gonna be.
Yeah.
because, because all of our areas that we would allow that height, or even remotely near that, have water and sewer.
Yes.
Yeah, and further down, there is a question about provision of, or maybe I just left it here, but we did confirm with I confirmed with Paul that our water treatment plants do have sufficient capacity for significant additional development in our areas, and we are currently investing in an additional water tower, so those systems are in reasonable shape. There are parts of the state where they are not, they're at or, close to or at their full capacity. So that would be more of a question for people, municipalities that have smaller treatment plants or undersized treatment plants.
So it's only the last item that remains.
The guidelines.
Yeah.
So just to add a couple of words to this one, because I've followed some of the conversations and some of the initial drafts that the Land Use Review Board has been doing and communicated with one of the board members. What they've decided so far is that they have decided to make this section E not a checkbox of this is how you do smart growth or not. They have they're going to give guidelines, but they are intentionally leaving it up to the municipalities to make a narrative argument as to why they believe that they are doing something that represents smart growth. And so I think it gives us a really great opportunity to tell the story of why we are doing what we are doing. And I think you all, I feel very proud of the work that you all have been doing to foster exactly this kind of smart growth of pairing conservation with height in the appropriate locations and stepping down so that there is the variety of housing types and needs that are being met. So, TBD, but I'm not too worried about the narrative argument here. Might be if I were looking at it.
Yeah, a nearby other. So the smart growth principles of 24 VSA chapter 76A, that's what is in that second table. So just wanted to run through the remainder of this. So Michael, this is what you pointed out about the historic regulation. We currently do not specifically regulate historic structures and sites. But our proposed tier 1A area is not incompatible. This is this topic area where we could have specific regulation added to better comply and specifically expressly address historic sites and structures, however, to whatever level we decide.
Those that are on the register.
Yeah, and that's a future conversation.
Oh, no, we'll talk to future conservation.
No, I was just, that's more of the Act 250 doesn't now, and what level do we want to do it in the future?
Yeah.
We would recommend as on the staff side that express language be added to the LDRs to sort of specifically check this box.
Yeah.
But what that looks like could, as I said before, could be very minimal or it could be extremely elaborate. So that's a conversation that would need to go on.
And importantly, the language is compatible with the character of adjacent historic areas. So again, it's a narrative argument, and we can do some bolstering of our regulations, but the job is not to create an entire council of governments necessarily or what is it called? Council of government, certified local government, to create a whole historic preservation.
Yeah.
It is to be, how do we make sure that the new blends with that which exists?
Sure.
And so a form-based code is called out in their draft language as saying a form-based code that is thoughtful and is considering the scale that you deem appropriate to go with things may very well qualify.
Yep.
Yep.
So then in G, this is about significant natural communities and RTEs, rare, threatened, and endangered species in the tier 1A area. Significant natural communities, we do some of that with our habitat blocks and wetlands and other floodplains, other things like that. We do not expressly do rare, threatened, and endangered species. That is solely in the purview of the state at this point. So that is something that we do not do, but I had already mentioned, I don't think you were in the room yet, that we are meeting with ANR to start working on what does that look like to have that kind of regulation at the municipal level.
Add 2 words to that.
Yeah. Done.
We are trying to be first out of the gate to meet with ANR so that.
I said that.
Oh, great.
Yeah.
So we can have a shape for.
We want to lead, not be led.
Yeah.
Okay, I'll stop talking because you've covered
I
everything.
got it.
Enforcement.
Yep.
Do you have plans for stopping it?
Nope.
Well-
It's part of the bigger conversation about taking on tier 1A is what does that look like for the city? Tier 1A also involves being the enforcer of existing conditions. Is that in tier 1B as well? No, that's just. So a property that has an Act 250 approval now may have conditions put on it, and then enforcing of those existing, I don't mean existing conditions like on the ground, I mean existing legal conditions that were in an approval. Would become the enforcement mechanism that through the city.
That's right.
If an Act 250 permit says you've got to do something every 2 years,
Right,
is that's something that would need to be enforced?
yes,
Is there such a thing?
Yeah.
yes.
Yeah.
Which we aren't doing now because we don't have the ability.
We don't enforce Act 250 conditions now. The state that is in their authority to do. The level at which they do it is in their decision making. enforcement of those conditions would go onto the pile of the, how we regulate our local regulations. So, that is a question about staffing resources, staff time, professional, and technical expertise for certain things.
I don't wanna-
So that is a bigger practical question.
I don't want to drag it out,
No,
but
but yeah,
But
there are city properties that are covered by Act 250 permit, which require us to hogwash,
Brush off.
to brush hog it at least every 2 years.
right.
Well, we don't because we don't.
Yep.
So to add a couple of words, we are aware that a tier 1 application includes this responsibility and the demonstration of capacity. It's not just that we say we do it, we have to prove that we have capacity.
That
So
you're able to.
as we look over the coming 3 months or so, council is going to next month be having their initial, what are the things that shape the fiscal 27 budget? That'll be among the things that is talked about with council about the big picture, and then the analysis of, and then the recommendation of what it would take to do this would be part of that, the budgets presented in October, November. Based on council guidance in September on big picture issues, so we are very aware.
But this additional capacity is essentially just for grandfather in Act 250 conditions, because there won't be past this, there's no more Act 250. If we didn't want to, it would just be our local
Right.
regulations we already
Right.
enforce.
So what functionally will happen is that a project that got an Act 250 approval 5 years ago or
Yeah.
last week or whatever, there would be conditions that would be our responsibility. As that project maybe comes in for its next iteration, you know, the UMAL comes in, it's subject to an Act 250. The statutes lay out a loose process by which the DRB evaluates the existing conditions and determines what remain relevant for in the next application. You know, they come to build a 6-story building, what is relevant to maintain, what is redundant from existing local conditions, and so that over time sort of brings it into the local fold.
Gotcha.
But I don't think you can necessarily assume there won't be any ongoing conditions after that, because there may be areas we're
Oh,
not
certainly.
regulating that we pick up
Mhm.
that require us to impose ongoing
They would
requirements
be,
on an applicant.
but they would be locally imposed.
Yes, they'd be
conditions.
locally imposed and locally enforced, but it may be things that currently Act 250 is doing that we decide, well, if we get this status, we still want this done, but now we have to do it.
Right.
Yeah.
And I guess ultimately, city council needs to decide what the cost of this is versus the benefits and decide if we want to go after it.
Yeah.
Because it does sound like there's a not insignificant additional burden.
Well, and it also
So-
depends on how much additional regulation that you determine that South Burlington needs to have. You know, you could decide if you meet these requirements in the memo that we sent out now to qualify for tier 1A, you could say, yep, we did this. Our regulations are good, like as we have them, we don't care about these other things that Act 250 regulates differently or more intensely or whatever. That's a decision that's in the realm of possibilities. It's not necessarily what we would recommend, but it
We
is
remain responsible for pre-existing
for the
conditions.
conditions, yeah. But anything new, it would be the choice of the city about what anything additional you'd want to take on. Nothing would be forced. What's next? Oh, so H is the capacity of the public water and wastewater systems. That's my further speaking about it is the yes.
We do that.
And then Michael, the A is the adequate support, adequate staff for comprehensive and capital planning, development review and zoning administration in the tier 1A area. So yes, but is kind of that. We are one of the highest staffed municipalities on the planning and zoning side in the state as being a larger well-resourced community. But it would require sort of evaluating what staff hours are there available to do certain things and how could you reorganize positions or whatever the case may be.
I think that there is a We have not completed the analysis. There is a likelihood that there will be an additional need. To be determined on exactly what that represents and how we structure it over time too. That's another conversation, but I
Right.
think it is unlikely to say status quo is sufficient. I think we're going into this eyes wide open and realistic about this.
Well, you kind of have to be able to read the future too, to know that. You
Our
know,
collective
But-
thought, right?
Anyway. So table 2 is, the comparison between, smart growth principles as defined in VS, 24 VSA chapter, 76A. So that's section 2791 definitions, sub 13. This is directly out of statute, so it's very possible that the LDR will come in with different or nuanced, or as Paul said, open-ended guidance on what it means to be meeting smart growth principles. What the information that we have that is firm at this point is the statute. So that's what we built this off of, is what are the principles that are included in the definition of smart growth principles in the state statute that is referenced by the Tier 1A section. So I don't think it's necessary to walk through everything that is in this table, but we would love to know if anyone has any questions about it, any areas of concern that you think, ooh, like we don't really do that, or the way staff described it in this memo is kind of misrepresenting how I see something, or any other questions like that. As I said at the beginning, this is sort of the skeleton that we will be building up from when we get more guidance from the LDR, when we get more, when we do more with the state, with some of the other with ANR and others, as we move through the fall and winter. But this, I think, shows pretty well that we're in a reasonably good place now. The city of South Burlington in the last, since the last, including and past the last interim zoning, I think has actually done a lot of things that has more directly addresses some of these points. You know, it may be something that the city's been doing for a long time, but the last round of IZ in 2021 and then a couple of LDR amendments since then have provided some very specific examples of how we meet these different smart growth principles.
I only had 2 questions, or
Yeah.
one was on H.
Okay.
To the next page. Why wouldn't we include that we've got inclusionary zoning in that? That would add.
Yeah, definitely can. Yep.
And the other one was, where is it? In I, not characterized by scattered development located outside the compact urban village centers. Is the protection that we've got for NRP and habitat blocks each have some limited development capacity,
Yeah,
but these parcels of this land that would result in some scattered development, because right now they're open,
sure.
and that's a bit of I see that as a problem.
Yeah, I think it needs to be seen through the lens of being about 90% correct. If you think of the number of homes in the city of South Burlington, and then the potential for people to build additional housing in the NRP, the total housing in South is about 7,000,
Almost 10,000.
almost 10,000 housing units of various types and sizes. And the potential for future NRP housing is in the teens to 20s.
Yeah,
It's a
very low.
quite small percentage.
What about habitat blocks? Are they adequately protected?
We do, with the work you did last year,
On 12.
where you specifically looked parcel by parcel to identify which part of the
There are
habitat
only a
block
few
be
that would
removed.
allow, yeah.
I don't know that we allow any housing in the habitat.
Not anymore.
Only one? Okay.
So I think that part of this, it's an interesting it's an important point that you're bringing up, Michael. And part of what we can look at is it would not be a big mapping exercise for us to identify what that number is, because many parcels that are in the NRP also have land that are not in the NRP,
Yep.
and therefore you have to build outside. Several of the NRP properties are permanently conserved, and so maybe Vermont Land Trust could build a home on 100 acres.
Yeah, and
That's-
some of them are contiguous with habitat blocks.
I do think that to the point though, based on our pattern of where development happened over the last 40 years, South Burlington's strategy of meeting I is a little bit different from what the statewide theory of it is. You know, the statewide idea is you got your town center and then everything around it is rural.
It's just that the word scattered brought to mind that somebody's gonna call it sprawl, and then it's
Right,
a
so
whole new-
I think we need to, in our context, talk about how we're planning for habitat connectivity and habitat blocks, and that they're, you know, sometimes they're more linear than what might be perceived on a statewide basis, but they are, in our context, very aggressively seeking to retain these.
Yeah, and I also focused on, is not characterized by. There are definitely municipalities that their development pattern is characterized by scattered development.
Oh,
You know,
yeah.
everybody's on 5 acres and it's 5 acres all the way across the municipality.
Yeah.
That would be the character of that development pattern. For us, the character of the development pattern is much more dense in a lot of places. It's much more suburban in most of those sort of fringe
It's
places.
a plant for what?
Yeah, and then there's a handful of areas where there is sort of those larger lots and with other things, but they are now enabled to be built at those with adapting to the building type and minimum lot size. All of those areas can be further infilled at this point. We no longer have 1 acre or 2 acre zoning. So
Yeah.
other towns do.
It feels like if we said to comply with I, you had to basically restrict all growth to village centers. I'm not sure if anyone in the state qualify for 1A.
Correct. Yeah, so leaning on the word characterized is
Yeah.
helpful in that case.
No?
Any other feedback, questions about that?
No further questions, Your Honor?
All right, well,
I mean,
that's all we have for tier 1A for today.
I guess one of the follow-up question to
Yeah.
Ivy though, will that have anything to do with whether or not we gain a village center designation for Shelburne Road? Cause at the moment, like, it's kind of, we have it zoned as being very dense.
Mhm.
At the moment, it's not particularly walkable or bikeable or near a village center, and I agree it should be dense, but I also love to see the village center there, but if we, for example, are not allowed to put a village center there, would that cause any issues with arguing that Shelburne Road is an appropriate location for development?
Do you know anything new about the flux
Well-
situation over there?
Colin, why are you using the word village center?
Or towns,
Downtown.
Urban development center area.
But there's a designation that we have for,
Right.
like, I can't remember if it's village or if it's town.
Downtown.
That's whatever it
Town
was, yeah.
centers, there's all sorts of things
Right.
that
At
work.
the moment, it's just a growth area that doesn't have any specific status.
Yep.
So there is a little bit of a discrepancy in two different parts of statute on this subject.
Mhm.
I'm gonna go a little bit in the weeds for a second. The future land use categories that the regional planning commissions can use talk about centers. Of which it is recommended, and the Chittenden County Regional Planning Commission is going to advance a center along Shelburne Road, and obviously our center right here. That has to be reviewed by the Land Use Review Board. We feel pretty good about it, but it's ultimately their call to make. So there's a risk there. There's the discrepancy is the same statute, the same bill passed the new version of what used to be called downtowns and new town centers and village centers. They now just call them centers with steps to them. Step 1, step 2, step 3.
Okay.
And sort of the idea of, like, as you get more involved in your planning, you can go up the steps so that a downtown Burlington that has all these downtown organizations might be able to achieve more benefits than one that doesn't yet, like Bristol. The language in that part of statute is a little bit tighter on some of the terminology about whether you can have new ones or invest in historic ones. So that's a little bit of there's some work being done on addressing that subject.
Okay,
Ultimately, for the purposes of tier 1A, as long as the land use review board is comfortable with the idea that we're planning a focus area, I'm not gonna use the word center, along Shelburne Road, to which the rest of the Shelburne Road corridor can be attached. The tier 1A should be in pretty good shape for that.
okay. So
Whether
basically,
the designation part of it, we may have some statutory work to do on that, but they're sort of cousins to one another, not directly one.
Yeah. So they mostly just care to make sure, oh, is Shelburne Road area, improving, trying to improve walkability, even if it doesn't
Right.
necessarily achieve this center status.
Right, and
Yeah.
the real core of the issue is figuring out this. There is a debate about how to make use of their very limited state resources, like tax credits and things. So it's not really about the state having any disagreement about a place like Shelburne Road being a focus area. It's the question of, should the tax credits that are available to Enosburg Center and Rutland City Center be eligible for an emerging new place like Shelburne Road or Susie Wilson Road? So it's not about the planning, it's about the dollars.
I see, okay.
And whether there would be state dollars, so I think it is a solvable problem.
Gotcha. Okay. Thanks.
Thank you for letting me talk way into the middle of minutes.
Okay. Guess we're done with that one. Next on the agenda is work plan FY 26 work plan. Discussion and possible update. So there's a number of questions. I don't know how do we,
Is it time to turn the lights on?
yeah, I think so, because I'm having trouble seeing my page. Suppose my glasses would help too, but
Okay,
so there's some recommendations that you've made about how to approach this question.
yeah, so the core of this, and most of it it's outlined in the memo, is with the LDR amendments that have been warned by city council. There is also a question about addressing further exploring bedrock removal noise and where does that fit in the approved planning commission work plan. There are also a few other little pieces that have come through in a similar timeline that have come from related to the LDRs. So one is I'll stop sharing this for a second so I can see what I'm talking about. Or if you want. I'm just looking for my page.
Want me to read it?
Sure.
It said planning commission action, that one,
The
or before that?
before that.
To scale back the FY 26 actions and deliverables for Shelburne Road Center project? That's what we were just talking about though.
So there's a couple of projects that we're talking about adding to the work plan or moving up into the sort of core of the work plan instead of the as time allows. So adaptive reuse and waivers project and alternative compliance. We've talked about that. Like, what do we do with existing buildings? What do we do with existing uses? How do we enable
Yes.
thoughtful use
part
of these structures and areas? As I mentioned, the bedrock removal noise and exploring that. What else do I have listed in here? Those are the two biggest ones.
There's some performance standards.
And then also performance standards, exploring our performance standards that are in need of an update. And being able to look at those holistically and in a sort of across the board way where we are hoping to slot into winter of 26. Yeah.
Update of
to be able to do that, we have a handful of recommendations about things that can be either scaled back for this fiscal year or sort of pushed out to the later spring and then therefore spill over a bit into fiscal year of 27. The first one is scaling back the FY 26 actions for a Shelburne
Okay.
Road Center project. And then another is starting more intensive study of the interface between the airport and the neighborhood near the airport, just pushing that a little bit further into the spring so that the bulk of it, sort of visioning, will fall into FY 26, but then the bulk of the work will fall into FY 27. So that's just sort of pushing that one out. And again, the details are in the memo, so stop me if you have any questions about any of those things.
One silly question.
Yeah,
When does our FY start?
July 1st.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Yeah, so John, we had a work plan that was part of the policy priorities and strategies that city council had worked on and approved as a citywide thing. And then we had a thing and now we have some other projects that are, we've determined should take a little more priority. So what does, if we were to take on those projects, what kind of gets scaled back or bumped out?
Right, so specifically, you all asked about, want to recommend to council that you take on a more detailed look at the bedrock removal, for quantifiable standards. The council has asked that you, had two projects that they wanted you to spend some time on, that are outlined in there. One is, the looking at heights, over, by the DoubleTree. And the other was, that they added during the work plan
The
was
lot coverage.
lot coverage. So you grew the lot coverage last year on small lots, low scale neighborhoods. The question becomes, if somebody chooses to keep a single home on a large lot, but in a district that's a low scale neighborhood, does that create a potential problem of, oh, I could put an acre of pavement on my lot, or is that not a problem? So that was the question there. And then the two that staff is recommending that are companions to this in our mind are, as Kelsey said, the holistic look at the performance standards, which includes lighting and dust and odor, things like that. I know that there's been a lot of interest in the subject of lighting. We've had some interesting interfaces with the rest of our performance standards. One of them references a 1951 manufacturer's report on chemicals, which is findable, but you have to sort of blow 75 years of dust off it before you can use it. So it's not necessarily a massive project, but it is a time to update some of that stuff, we think. And I think that some of the conversations you've been having are indirectly on that subject. And then the last one being this sort of infill adaptive reuse, which is really looking to the future and how do we deal with it.
Yeah, so what I've just put up in tiny font is our suggested changes to the work plan. You have this in your memo or in your packet, so you don't need to use the tiny font, but I just wanted to include it for with the recording. So again, review the lot coverage, consider further updates to the bedrock removal standards, review and consider updates to performance standards. This new one in here is just it looks like it's new, but it's just moved from the, like, as time allows into the, let's tackle this. That's review use of alternative compliance, modification, waivers, a possible adaptive reuse standards. So that's all those. And then on the next page, we just added a couple of these little guys that say to begin late FY 26. So it moves things like, visioning and scoping, writing. We last year we did a few project charges to sort of set the boundaries on something that we're working on for public transparency and for sort of task management. Maybe those are the things that fall into sort of the May-June timeframe of next year. Just get pushed the timeline out a little bit. Yeah.
One comment, I think bedrock removal is a limiting misnomer. Because I've looked, other municipalities use a very broad term as a overall excavation. They just use the term excavation that covers everything. If you dig for something or blast for something or or jackhammer something, that's all excavation. Because bedrock is kind of, there may be areas in South Burlington where excavators could make a hell of a lot of noise, even though it's not bedrock. So I thought a broader heading for that would be appropriate. And my other question was whether we
So it
can
would be you're
Yeah.
suggesting something along the lines of excavation for the purposes of development.
Yeah.
The main thing that we're trying to distinguish is we also have standards of resource extraction, which is a whole different category where you are removing a thing for its,
You have a gravel pit.
right. So that's a different, I mean, also very important, but that is separately regulated because it's a totally, I mean, there are commonalities to it, but there's a lot of things that are not common.
So is O'Brien Brothers running a quarry down on Kimball Road or what?
So that
Because they're digging up
today,
stuff.
that would be considered bedrock removal and processing. And that's in the covered in
Yes.
the bedrock removal, because they're also crushing the rock
Yes.
to make use of it on site.
But it is connected to a development
What?
approval. So it's not to have a business of, digging gravel. It's they're creating gravel and their only reason that they're digging it out is because they're developing that site.
So.
And the reason
I
they're
have no
crushing is
problem
it to be able to use it on
On,
site,
They
on
used to-
site.
right?
Yeah,
Yes.
that can be used in making in concrete,
Yep.
You need
Yeah.
that kind of stone. And then,
I mean, I have no problem with, for the purpose of this, describing it as something more inclusive for development related removal of material. Excavation.
Although the noise aspect was basically the reason we were dealing with bedrock, right?
Well, that would be the noise aspect.
well, it's just
That's what-
amazing.
But do you have to broaden it? I mean, if you call it excavation, do you have to broaden it to all the other things included under excavation?
For development. Excavation for
Right.
development.
Well, excavation for development, right, but I mean, there's a lot of issues there. I mean, you get into water issues, too, and
No,
I
you don't
mean-
have to, if you're just talking about the noise generated, you don't have to regulate everything else.
okay, so it's just noise related to excavation.
Yeah.
I don't think you're gonna be gonna draw jacks to remove sand, I would assume.
It would be.
Well,
good.
But you might have pumps running all night long if you hit
Yeah,
water
that's true.
table and it's like
Yeah.
all of a sudden you got a gusher.
But that's, yeah, so yeah,
Well-
that's.
At least you don't have to worry about hitting oil around here.
Yeah, and there's also, it was a. No, never mind.
Okay.
Oh, blasting, there are state regulations. That regulate blasting. So why would we have to rewrite that? Why don't we just say they're included by reference?
This can absolutely be part of this review. The most common avenue by which I have seen blasting regulated is through Act 250. And so that is why the draft that's in front of council incorporates anything to do with blasting and points to the state standards to make sure we're covered in that area, knowing that Act 250 is likely to tell us fewer
And
things.
my last question and plea is to upgrade the official map. Get
Already
them-
on there.
There's somewhere.
No, I'm not talking about city center, the official map.
It's
The
should be
official
in
map.
there.
Where is it?
At the top of this page, we can update the citywide
Right.
official map,
Here we go.
yes, no.
There's also, no, there's a few different, it's in a few different places. So it's there, and it is. Official map updates and maintenance, initiate general updates. This is last driveway.
Yeah.
So there's a few things city map related that are on here, or official map related. updates that relate to the active transportation plan part 2. And once that kind of gets moving, like what updates to the city plan will be needed after that. City center infrastructure. We've already done some of that, and then general updates, and then on the next page, there was one more. The Mary Street Wilson Road intersection updates to if it's.
They're not referenced also in the Parks and Open Space Master Plan?
It's part of beginning limitation. It's not specifically called out, but it's part of a broader suite of things. Yeah. Any further thoughts or questions about?
It's basically no air.
You can do whatever you need to do over there.
I don't know, if this might be an appropriate time for me to fill you in on a couple of conversations I've had in the last couple of weeks with Charlie Baker.
Well, so that would be part of the substance of the performance standards updates and the of Act 250 potentially related things, so.
So when you say performance standards, that's
Lighting
kind
is-
of the all-inclusive
Yeah,
piece of that.
that's what we're saying is that we're looking at putting into the winter a comprehensive look at all of the performance standards that we have.
Yeah.
So, we have performance standards about dust and odor and light and all of these other things. So
Yeah.
electromagnetic
Electromagnetic radiation.
radiation,
I'm not promising that there's gonna be updates to every single part of it, it's just a.
to look at it, to check it out, spend some time on it. So that's
Like I
part of,
know DRB had a odor issue recently.
yeah, and had to use a,
I just don't think it's been resolved, but
right, right.
you know, business has changed and the new business is emitting a lot of odors and the neighbors are complaining and.
Yeah.
It wasn't picked up in our initial permitting process because it wasn't really covered.
And that's an example of, when you dive down into the standard, it refers to something that is a 75-year-old standard.
Yeah.
And so when you go to hire a professional to do an analysis, they say that is 11 editions ago of this book.
Right.
That is now no longer a book. What do you want us to do? And so we wind up having to work with them to use their best professional judgment, which is not entirely based in the rules, but then the rules wouldn't, it's just, that's the disconnect.
Yeah.
And so it puts a lot of.
Could stand to be
pressure on
updated.
the board.
Yeah.
Or,
Yeah, and instead of doing one piece this year and then another piece in 2 years or whatever, like take a look at everything and see what we can do to make that
Yeah.
better, both for the public and for, the engineers and everybody that we'll deal with, and also for the DRP.
Morristown's
So
currently
the
up.
crematory standards kind of fall in that
all
category
of
too.
those, all of those things,
Yeah, they're more.
not the use, not regulation of the uses,
Right.
regulation of the performance of the uses,
Right.
so.
As your Morristown's currently having a big deal with dust at the moment, because someone's proposed a very large quarry there near
Oh.
the town. That generates a lot of specific dust that's known as called human health conditions. So a lot of residents are very up in arms, but it's a little unclear. They don't have, so they're potentially like leaning on Act 250 maybe to
Right.
legislate it, but it's creating a whole hoopla because there isn't that much in their standards about dust to say, can you or can you not put a quarry here that's gonna generate lots of silica dust?
Right.
So it is important, certainly.
It is definitely important, and it's something that should be, like, what we're recommending is
Yeah.
that you have a comprehensive look at it. So it would be great if there was a, motion to submit the recommended update to the planning commission board
Those-
plan to city council.
Those two that you've written up as in LDR 25-07. The north side of Wilson Road.
No, we're still talking about 6. We're still talking about the work plan. Just need an official action by the planning commission to, the version of the work plan that has the red line in it in your packet.
This
to-
one,
Yeah,
one with the blue bar at the top.
yeah, to submit that back to city council as a recommended update.
You need a motion for that?
Yes,
I guess
please.
you do.
I move that the approved work plan with recommended changes marked in red that are included with our packet of August 12th, 2025, be approved and submitted to the city council.
I'll
Give me a
second.
second. That was Colin. Of the note
Wanna vote?
taker.
Oh,
We need to vote it.
Yes.
yep,
So,
Any further discussion?
yes, further discussions first. If not,
Or-
those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye,
Thank you.
unanimous.
Yep. Of the four.
Don't need more than.
No need more than. Yeah. Yes, so now, agenda item 7.
7 is LDR amendments, potential update to planning
Planning.
commission report.
Yep. So what happens is procedurally is that the planning commission warns a public hearing, holds a public hearing, advances a set of amendments to the city council. And then the city council at that point makes any changes and then warns their public hearing. The planning commission has to go back and look at the reports that you all approved when you advanced the LDR amendments to city council and see if there's anything that needs to be changed based on the changes that city council has made to the version that they warrant forward.
So we have to approve their changes, in other words.
So,
no,
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 you are
we're updating.
updating
Oh.
the report. So this is a report that goes
I
to the
see.
state about the LDR amendments. So when the city council, we had a report that you all approved based on the LDR amendments as you had advanced them to city council. City council made a few changes that when we reviewed the reports, necessitated a couple of changes
Okay.
to those reports and just how things were described because there were a few changes made. So now your role is to approve the amended reports that now accurately reflect what
Okay.
city council moved forward to public hearing.
and.
They will have a public hearing. Do we need another public hearing? No.
You do not need another public hearing. They have a public hearing scheduled for September 2nd.
No, then I'll make the motion.
Just
Go ahead.
being new, I'm gonna just ask some other
Yeah.
annoying questions. Let's say we felt really strongly that
Yep.
we need to make those changes, and we said, no, we think it's a really bad idea to keep. Would we have the ability to say, yeah, we understand what city council wants to do, but
We don't like.
No,
Well,
so
so you have two avenues here, so.
I'm just trying to really figure out what this review is for.
Right, so there's two things that you can be doing. Let's say council says, actually, we think that there should be nothing more than 1-story buildings in city center. And they take all your 10s or 8s or 6s or even the current 5 and they say 1-story maximum. You could, in your report, the point of the report is to do an analysis and an assessment of how the proposed amendments match the city plan and state law. In terms of the sort of access to housing and things like that. You could come out with a finding that said, our report that we approve is that this bylaw is not consistent with these things, and then that is the procedural formal way, and then what happens with that to be determined.
Now, in this case, we recommended a change. And city council took most of them and they took one and they said, no, we don't like that change. We're gonna leave it the way it is.
Mhm.
So it's staying status quo.
Yes.
So our review is that the status quo is okay.
Well, let me finish the second avenue and then I'll
Okay.
answer your question. So the second thing, the planning commission separately from the report is, of course, just like any other public body, welcome to share your feedback, but it is feedback. It is entirely in their hands at this
Yep.
point. They don't need your permission, approval to do
Absolutely.
anything. In this specific instance, council's ask was that they felt that there were a few outstanding questions related to the DoubleTree in that area. Rather than make a change themselves to your draft, they asked you that you spend some more time and come back with after you've assessed their questions, because they felt you were better positioned.
Mhm.
So in the interim period, they're not accepting the change because they didn't want to come up with their own change that you haven't vetted. So the
Which all
report
makes
in this
perfect
case
sense.
could basically just be essentially nothing is proposed to change in that area. And so you just take that section out because nothing's proposed to change any longer.
Okay,
Does that make
makes sense.
sense?
Yes,
That's sort of-
absolutely. I was just trying to get that
Yeah,
clear in
yeah.
my mind, and not that I have any issues with
No, no, I think it's important.
what
to
you've done, I
understand-
just, as an example
Yeah,
case.
it's important to understand what your roles and responsibilities and authorities are, and there is a lot in there, so.
Yeah,
Okay.
and the thing that's tricky is that there is a difference between something being, as Paul said, the report is the change consistent with the city
Right.
plan and with state law about housing and other protected things? There's a difference between being not inconsistent and being consistent. So you could have two or three versions of a thing that are all consistent with our city plan and with state law that are all completely different from each other.
Mhm.
So in this particular example, moving that one piece of land from the HSMU to the T4 may also be consistent with state law. So where nothing in the report is saying this is the only solution that we found that would be consistent.
Right.
Where you're saying that option is also consistent by taking this out. That's what the action is to be.
Okay, thank you.
Welcome.
So the history of that issue, because I'm trying to recall
Mhm.
why it was shown as high scale mixed use. Did that have something to do with that housing
It
that
a
was being
pragmatic-
proposed?
So the reason it's in the HSMU right now is all of Williston Road and most of Dorset Street, all were in the same zoning district together. It was at the time called Commercial 1 Residential 12. That later became HSMU. When you first adopted the form-based code, it was so new that properties owned by UVM were not included in it because it added another layer of complexity in an area that was not the focus point. So this land is the remainder that's owned by UVM. It's a pragmatic reason why.
So after the form-based code area was stamped out of what previously was one big zoning district, it's this little corner that remains.
Hmm. And so the reason for
Council's
taking
action,
that out is just to make it consistent with the rest of the T4 parcels.
right, and council's specific question is, it's sort of wonky land, forms back there. There's a parking lot that is immediately behind the DoubleTree, and then there's the one that's way in the back, way into the woods.
Yeah.
And that was really the subject of council's discussion, not the immediately behind the DoubleTree,
I see.
but the one that's way back and saying, did the commission have a specific conversation about what you want to do on that sort of island that sits out in the middle there? And they decided rather than to have an on-the-fly discussion and make a determination, they wanted you to look at that area a little bit more and come back with whatever you recommend, including the same thing. They just said, we would like you to study it a little bit more and come back with a recommendation. And they didn't want to hold up all the rest of your work in order to do it. Does that make sense?
Yeah, yeah. I'm just trying to understand the implications of changing it back to T4 because that's,
No, it's currently HSMU and it would stay HSMU.
oh, it would stay HS.
Yeah, so the
So-
proposed change was to add it to the T4. The proposed change was cut. So then it would not change, it would stay HSMU.
It's a double negative.
Yep.
Okay. Yeah, because in a way, it seems like having it part of the form-based code area doesn't really make much sense because it's not at all like the rest of the
So that's
form-based
the
code
subject
area.
of the conversation.
Except the area immediately behind the DoubleTree is, because the
It
DoubleTree
is.
itself is in the form-based code. So the
Right.
parking lot is not.
Right.
And the DRB had to start to wrestle with this last year where half of a project was under their purview, half of it was not. And so it's an area that needs to clean up.
Who owns the parking lot?
UVM.
And that's contiguous with all that wooded area that goes
So
down
it's
into
a
the.
single parcel, practically speaking, and everything that is not pavement is in the habitat block back
Mhm.
there. So that's not at risk, it's really
And
just.
Oh, it's really the two parking lots.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Gotcha.
And or wetlands.
And or wetlands.
Yeah, part of the reason that there's a separation between that kind of back parking lot and the one that's contiguous to the DoubleTree is there's wetland in between.
And a lot of slopes.
It's the Union rugby pitch, I guess.
Well, it's fully wooded as well.
Well, part of it's in Burlington,
Part of
part of
it's
it's,
in Burlington.
yeah.
Right, that's another, that's along Williston Road, yeah, so some of that's in Burlington, some of that's in South Burlington.
Yeah, but I'm just thinking towards the actual areas that it matters whether it's Heisman Lakes use versus T4 is it's the 2 parking lots and I guess part of that field, essentially.
Yeah, kind of that funny corner.
Yeah.
Yeah.
'Cause the rest of it's all conserved, you can't do anything.
Yeah.
Anyways.
Yeah. So I reviewed the planning commission reports that had gone with the LDR amendments. The only one that had changes that would be required is the LDR 2507 report. And it's just the 2 bullets there. One is just removing the change as a listed change, and the second is a sort of syntactical, grammatical correction.
You want the motion?
Yes, please.
I move to approve the updated planning commission reports for LDR 25-25-07 as amended and find that the remaining planning commission reports, LDR 25-25-01 through LDR 25-06 and OM-2501 do not require amendment to reflect the city council's proposed change.
Second.
Vote,
Any
No.
anybody?
Any discussion?
There's only 4 of us.
I mean, it was. I assume you were reading that from someplace, because that was
Yeah.
very confusing
Yeah.
otherwise.
Yeah, it is. I mean, it
Okay.
makes sense, but. if you-
Okay, any discussion?
No.
If not, those in favor?
Aye.
Unanimous.
Thanks very much. Okay,
I have another
And-
motion to make.
You have another motion?
make whatever.
I move to approve the minutes of July.
Oh,
8th,
so that was the next
2025,
piece, yeah.
Yeah, we-
Two of them.
And July 22nd, 2025, as amended.
As amended?
Well, no, I don't have to say that. You got all my. You,
That was June that you sent.
Michael sent July
No.
22nd notes,
they're minor.
yeah,
Oh, okay.
so they include, Mr. Matag nominated Ms. Luisa's for chair.
Mm.
Later activating city center as a civic and an entrepreneurial space, correcting space, spelling the name. And a couple of other little, the enforcement. There are enforcement powers of the city to issue as capacity restraints was the word put in there. Michael suggested constraints. I think those are all appropriate changes. You're welcome to see all of them, but we're good to.
Okay, so
If anyone wants, I can put the email up on the screen.
that's discussion
So
on
we'll
the,
send
is that
them.
July 8th?
July 8th and July 22nd.
Okay, both of them. So any
Somebody
further
might like to
discussion?
Second that.
Any,
Oh,
oh,
Second.
okay, you want to second
Yeah.
that? Then any discussion? I assume you covered on page 5 of where it says last line where I said a number limit to decibels makes sense as opposed to send.
Yeah,
Mhm.
Yeah,
Yep.
okay. That's the only one I found. Any others? Nope, okay, those who vote to approve the minutes from both.
Aye.
Yay, no,
All right. Thank you. very
okay, now, I have an announcement that you may not have covered. A stop sign's coming in. Tomorrow,
Over there,
corner of Garden Street and Market Street.
wait, already?
new stop sign.
A new stop sign is being installed along Market Street at Garden Street, 4-way.
Four-way stop.
oh, 4-way, good.
So we have a 4-way stop
There will be
here
a
at
big
Tilio, and there will be
Sign
another one
saying
at
no
Garden.
stop sign coming.
Please don't hit us in the parking.
You got the flashers on it or just the?
It's gonna be one of those mobile boards that's.
Oh,
gonna
those
say
guys.
Temporary.
Yeah.
And 9/2, September 2nd is the official date that Garden Street will connect open to
Wow.
Market Street.
To-
This fall, the traffic signal is coming in at the east end of Market Street. You may have seen already, if you've been out there the last few days, striping to say right turn only and left.
You mean on Petsett Road? I mean on 160.
On,
Heinsberg, yeah.
and work is gonna start in September on putting in the sidewalk rec path on the healthy living side of Garden Street, the missing section there,
And a water line,
and a water line.
and that's gonna be awful.
Yeah,
I do
It's-
think it's hard getting in and out of that place now.
it's not fun, but it's
Required.
important.
It's important.
But will it make it any easier if you can come around the Garden Street side to get to healthy living? Is that, or is that?
Open Until 9/2, this is gonna start late August, right?
I'm already using,
Yeah, we had hoped to do that work before it opened, but the first time we put out bids, there were no bidders. And so
That's fine.
we are.
I visit friends in the new development there, and then when I'm done with them, I go through to Healthy Living.
Lots of really exciting stuff happening.
I would park at the Blue Mall, or
Where's Pole?
It's another way of doing it.
That's a good idea.
there's a sign that says parking for Blue Mall is not supposed to use that for, but
Yeah,
there's a lot of parking everywhere.
Temporary.
Just park where you want and walk.
We got plenty of parking.
That's the whole point of city centers, park and walk,
Yep.
so get used to it.
Park at the mall. It's only across the street.
Parking and parking there.
Park at the mall.
Park at the mall. It's only across the street.
Paul, just,
Do we have anything else in the meeting? Is this a meeting? Is this another business or is it?
no, it's not on the agenda.
Are we,
It can be an aside, so,
are we ready to adjourn then?
Yep.
yeah.
Okay, we adjourned.
So,